Gemini, 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 Gemini. Okay, I'm gonna read your Gemini, it's your astrological guide to love and sex. So if you're dating or know a Gemini, here's some things you can keep in mind about them. This is the first of the air signs in which the astrological man becomes aware of his sense of touch and his mental activity becomes more acute. It is also the first enigmatic sign of the zodiac, symbolized by the duality of the twins, walking hand in hand, man touching man for the first time and becoming intellectually conscious of his touch. The duality of Gemini is both its curse and its cure. Twins must always remain uniquely individual, yet they desire to be compelled by one another. And so we find Gemini always torn in two when making decisions that influence and control his approach to life, his ideas, ideals, morals, virtues, vices, and most of all, his sex life and love life. If any subject of any sign can thrive and get away with being involved in two amorous adventures simultaneously, it is Gemini. The contour of his mind is in such that he can rationalize his behavior and proceed through life innocent as a babe, convinced that he hasn't harmed a soul. A large portion of Geminis are without a conscience of the spiritual realms, and as a result they undoubtedly cause a great deal of emotional hurt to those of whom they have once professed to love. By nature, most Geminis are actually very aware of love. They realize that it involves responsibility and are rational enough to know that they may not be capable of undertaking such entanglements. Thus they are apt to compromise, to take the easy way out through their lives, and to contend with this on numerous adventures. Naturally, for this reason, they are reputed to be fickle and changeable. It is important to note that the inconsistency does not arise from any desire to have a thrill of experiencing many sexual or love escapades, but rather it is a part of the quest of an ever-inquiring mind that seeks perfection again and again. Gemini's ideal mate is often theoretical rather than real, but it is always present as an image and as a quick, versatile brain. I have this one, but perhaps tomorrow there may be something better. If so, I can't afford to risk missing it. If the attitude of Gemini is in his search for love, this is the attitude of Gemini in his search for love. He creates his own problems, but with ingenuity. This is the Willy Fox of the zodiac, but he can extricate himself from love affairs that would destroy others emotionally. The amazing thing is that Gemini comes out of the fray without losing too much face. He is babbling over with natural charm and is conscious that he has to use it. He leaps along his love life from others without thinking about making the first phone call for a date. His need to be a dynamic creature, a veritable human manifestation of perpetual motion, makes him an externally integrated in getting speedy results. He is the go-go man of the zodiac. Try to slow him down, and he'll leave you far behind, not giving you another thought, and so he is incapable of sustaining a long, slow courtship. If a Gemini asks his companion to go to bed on first meeting, it is not that he is promiscuous. He probably will not be any more moved by desire after a couple of dozen of additional meetings than he is at the moment of making the position, and chances are that if the companion waits too long to say yes, Gemini will have sought and found someone else. Gemini is neither immortal nor immoral. As a subject of the immoral or immoral, as subject of the first air, he is concerned with the aspects of mental agility above anything else. Sex is part of the adventure of living and doesn't want to miss out on anything. His life is rarely activated by sex alone. However, as far as Gemini, sex is incidental to other things, the aperitif, not the entree, of this emotional life. Sex is something to be enjoyed for the moment, but nothing that he wishes to ponder for too long. Sex evokes curiosity in the youthful Gemini. Nothing more, subjects of the air sign are often lacking in deep emotional comprehension and can rarely be expected to be sympathetic, two qualities which most women need for their own emotional security. Thus, some mates want more from Geminis than they can give. Research over a period of the last 20 years shows that Gemini figure largely in bigamy cases. Once they are involved into marriage, they have a planetary pattern which makes them repeat themselves. They can be pretty drastic as a tender trap. Indeed, for Geminis, if they cannot extricate themselves from the mismatch without losing their sorefold and retaining their charming image, they will resort to bigamy. This, however, seems to apply to the male, but not the female Gemini, as she is much more aware of getting involved in marriage to begin with. No Gemini is easily understood. Geminis possess a certain emotional coldness, even where sex is concerned. Lovemaking must be spontaneous. No postmortems afterwards. Yet Gemini is the sign of sensitive people. The nervous system is of its subject and can be easily afflicted. This can be upset with mental equilibriums. Many young Geminis can become subject to sexual perversions because of the extreme natural inquisitiveness in the middle life and tend to sadism. Those Geminis who lead a double life are actually quite happy and unembarrassing in doing so. They take little pains to disguise the fact from their intermediate associates. If there is not too much of the secretive nature about Geminis, then too much of the secretive nature about Geminis when it comes to love. Perhaps they consider it too insignificant to be kept secret. Life to the Geminis is often a long tightrope between birth and death. He accepts the fact that he must walk a line, and does do so with a great sense of swashbuckling mockery. Freedom is almost a passion to him. Freedom to search for his elusive ideals. Even if this intellect tells him to pursue the impossible dream, he prefers to live and love with the framework of that idea in the face of realization that there is no perfection on the planet Earth. Although, astrologically, we regard Gemini as a dispassionate sign, the characteristics can be altered by the position of the ascendant, rising sign, and the moon, and the presence of Venus in the individual's horoscope. But even the warmest Gemini places are sort of an intellectual awareness before the matters of sex and love. Take me as I am today, the Gemini seems to say, and the wise person who loves him will do just that, because tomorrow Gemini will be off on his high wire seeking new fields to conquer. One of the most unfortunate traits in Gemini is that in order to obtain his ideal of the moment, he can be a very efficient liar. If swearing to be in love and to get him what he wants, he will undoubtedly do so without a moment's remorse. He will assume that his partner has more sense than to believe him entirely. This is the one of the habits that he permits to him through his life, leaving him in the wake of a string of heartbroken females who have remembered his charm with wistful sentimentality. He may not be the greatest lover in the world, but he is not easily forgotten by the women that he has seduced. Generally, Gemini marries younger or disastrous love affairs. His mental forces are then alerted to the danger of exposing himself or allowing himself to become vulnerable to sex and love. This probability accounts for the fact that so many Geminis spend a lifelong afflicting emotional pain, since they have a strong need to do so after experience of rejection they have suffered in their first youthful love affair. A latent motivation for revenge is often behind the thought process of all Geminis. Once married, particularly if allied to someone who is compatible by them, whom he has children, he can be the best of parents, because the subject of the sign relates to young people to a great degree, than do subjects of many other signs of the zodiac. Gemini takes great interest in the education of the offspring, but sometimes demands more than intellectual and scholastic endeavors than they may be capable of giving. Though Gemini is not compassionate lover or husband, he comes into his own in the areas of the parents, and makes up for his unconcerns in marriage in surprising ways. So I'm going to cut it at that now. And, if you want to know more about Gemini, just do a little Google search. This was kind of just if it's in your sun sign. So even as it said when I was reading it, it has to do with all of the planets, how they combine and come together. So, but the sun sign is a very strong sign in your chart. But it's more of like how other people might perceive you. well, the moon is your inner consciousness, and you can even take into consideration your dark moon or your Lilith. And they all combine together. So thank you for watching. Subscribe and check out my other zodiacal videos. Mwah.